Hello and welcome to the commentary for Georgia. My name is Derek Pertell and I run the Jennifer Jason Leigh YouTube channel, JJL channel, and once in a while I make a low budget film. And I'm here with
Carl, longtime friend of Derek and also a huge JJL fan.
So I just wanted to mention it from the opening titles. Jennifer Jason Leigh pitched the film to the French company Cibi 2000 while she was in Cannes for the film Mrs. Parker. They financed it completely, and then Miramax picked it up at Cannes the following year for US distribution.
Okay, here in this opening, we have the amazing Jennifer Jason Leigh. She looks pretty hungover, and we have Jason Carter as Chasman. He's best known for Babylon 5, and the song is Fa 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 Sad Song, which is pretty appropriate since Sadie, JJL's character, is a very, very sad woman, and her songs are all sad for the most part.
And I wanted to mention this scene where the two young girls are singing. In the original script, they're singing Get Back by the Beatles for an audience of kids who are standing out in the cold. And that was going to repeat at the end to make kind of a circular thing. But in the film, we have Otis Redding instead.
Okay, here we have Jennifer Jason Leigh again doing some housekeeping, and we have the here she has her drink. Clearly she's an alcoholic. It's already indicated in the first scene of the film. Here we have Jimmy Witherspoon, a very famous blues singer. Unfortunately, he died of throat cancer 2 years after the release of Georgia. He did the soundtrack of Devil in a Blue Dress, and he had a role in Black Godfather. But other than that, he didn't have much to do in film. But he's definitely an interesting presence here, and the relationship immediately kind of tells you that this film is not the average film. You have the grenades.
I just wanted to mention it's kind of interesting how Sadie is cleaning hotel rooms. Her mother, Barbara Turner, who wrote the script for Georgia, wrote another screenplay called Beautiful View, where Leigh was to play a chambermaid in a hotel who becomes obsessed with one of the guests. Unfortunately, it was never made. I asked Leigh about it once, and she said they got close to making it a few times, but unfortunately it never quite happened. And after the scene in the script, there was a scene that was shot. You can tell by the cover to the soundtrack, where you see her sitting with a cat on a bed in a room that's not in the film. So anyway, what happens in that scene is that Sadie tells Chasman, her manager, that she's leaving so she can sing with Trucker.
Here you can already tell that she's getting into probably another abusive, not a healthy relationship by any means. He certainly is controlling.
And yes, so this Trucker character was actually based on a real person that Barbara Turner had heard about when she was doing research for the script, talking to musicians in Seattle. And so basically that relationship between the old blues singer and the younger woman was based on reality.
What about this editor, Elizabeth King? Are you familiar with any of the films that she's done?
Well, a lot of people who worked on this film have connections to Robert Altman. There's going to be a lot of mentions of him, I believe, as we go along. Elizabeth King edited O.C. and Stiggs, which was an Altman film, and she did a lot of other indie movies and TV.
Okay, and Jennifer Jason Leigh also, of course, has worked with Altman a number of times. Shortcuts, Kansas City. Any others? I think those are the two main films that she did with
also,
Altman.
also, he produced Mrs. Parker.
Ah, yes. With director Alan Rudolph.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, now here she's in the driver's seat and she's back with Jason Carter Chasman.
So as we go along, I'll throw in a few quotes from the filmmakers and actors. So Barbara Turner told the LA Times about Leigh, "We always wanted to work together and tried often. There were images of her that I used in all my scripts. Initially, it didn't occur to me that she'd want to be an actress. Then when she started to act, there'd be something always to get in the way. When she was just starting, they wanted a name, and then when she was a name, they couldn't afford her. What comes around goes around."
Interesting. Now this film, it came out in 1995, and it takes place during, it takes place in Seattle during the 90s grunge scene. It's definitely, that's the period it's invoking. And now we have Mare Winningham playing the title of the film, Georgia. Mare Winningham has had a long history with writer Barbara Turner, Jennifer Jason Leigh's mother. She played Libby Bellows in the TV movie Freedom, which is actually based on Jennifer Jason Leigh's sister, Carrie. Mare Winningham, she did 6 original songs for the film. She also did another film with Barbara Turner, Eye of the Sparrow, in 1983. Winningham and Jennifer Jason Leigh have been friends since they were teenagers. And I think they remain friends to this day. Do you have any more information about the relationship, Derek?
Well, I could quote Mare Winningham. Mare Winningham. She told the LA Times about being cast in the film. She said, "I was in at the inception, but by my own stupidity almost weaseled my way out. At the same time the script came along, I was trying to make my own musical ambitions come true. The script made perfect sense, but I was nervous about appearing as a character with an inner life different from mine, but an outer life completely the same. I didn't want to present myself as presented in the movie when I was trying to present this other me through my music. Barbara was hurt. She thought I didn't like the script. 6 months later, my album had come and gone. I was back where I started, and the film was looking damn fine. I came crawling back."
Well, and it's a good thing she did, because this film really was great for her career critically. Her career, she's kind of been known, but not. She never reached stardom, I would say. She was a member of the Brat Pack, one of the 9 members of the infamous '80s Brat Pack, but she can say she's the only Oscar-nominated member of that group. I suppose average moviegoers would probably know her best in the Tom Hanks film as his girlfriend in Turner and Hooch, which I must say I never saw. Did you?
No, I never saw it.
Okay, yeah. But I first really noticed Mare Winningham in the film Miracle Mile, and I immediately, I thought she had great screen presence, and she was one of my favorite aspects of that film. So Jennifer Jason Leigh, I've been a huge fan of since the 80s. And when I first heard that she would be doing a movie with Mare Winningham, I was very interested because I liked Mare Winningham so much in Miracle Mile.
Yeah, the same for me. I remember hearing about Georgia. What I first heard about it was that she was going to be playing an addicted blues singer. It came out slightly different than that, but that idea just seemed like totally right for her to do.
Yeah, and this song is very important because it's No More Hard Times. And, the film closes with this as well, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, and it's very much the heart of this film, this song, No More Hard Times.
Yeah, that's right. And basically, the core of the film is the relationship between the two sisters. So let's hear a little.
Look at Jennifer Jason Leigh here. Look at her. I mean, it's just, you see the pain. She's happy for Georgia, but there's also all this pain there as well. It's just, she's a constant contrast of happy and so much sadness and pain. It's really amazing to witness.
So Leigh told the Boston Globe, Sadie wants acknowledgement from Georgia. She wants recognition. Sadie lives through Georgia. Sadie wants to be Georgia. But how do you give that to somebody? But Sadie will never have Georgia's quiet, her grace, or her success. But Sadie doesn't realize that Georgia envies her ability to embrace life. Georgia doesn't want that kind of pain, though.
Right. And that's, we'll see a scene towards the end of the film that really conveys that. Here you can see the contrast, kind of this bourgeoisie family and then Georgia. Oh, here we have Ted Levine. Ted Levine is probably most famous for Put the Lotion in the Basket, Buffalo Bill, Silence of the Lambs. That's when I first saw him. And after that, he was getting typecast, How could you not after doing an iconic role like that? So he really wanted to do this film because it's about as far away as you can get from Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, and at that point he was trying to break away from getting typecast in those type of characters. And the director, Ulu Grossbard, was a little hesitant about casting him. He's somebody that both Leigh and Turner really wanted, and they kind of had to talk him into it. But after they did that, he realized what he could do, and he was definitely on board with that. So in the script, there's a scene after this backstage scene, which is Sadie leaves Chasmin again, and then in George's car, Sadie sings the Lobster Quadrille from Alice in Wonderland to George's children, Andrew and Mitch.
Mitch, yeah.
And
Mitch.
Georgia joins in.
Oh, God Kissed That Girl. Yeah. That there's that rivalry again, as if Georgia is somehow has the divine gift of singing. Here we are with Mitch. This actress, let's see, she never really did anything else but this film. Her name is Zora. No, what is her name, Derek? Right here. Rachel Raskell. She didn't do anything besides this film. And then her younger brother, Jamian, is named Jamian Breyer, the actor who plays Andrew Flood. He never did anything either after this film.
Maybe they got out lucky because child actors generally have a tough time making it in this world.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah. There's a lot of passive aggressiveness in this film, Trucker, some more I'm gonna make you mine, Trucker.
And you can see the way that Georgia has her towel all wrapped around tight. That kind of shows her personality. She's very uptight and self-conscious, even though she's, kind of interesting that she's a singer, but she's not someone who lets loose.
Right, that's very good, very good. Yeah, the contrasts between the clothes and the body language. I mean, even, George's husband is a lot more relaxed, but even he's kind of, clinging to Mitch, and they're just a closed family, and they probably know that Sadie is someone who can definitely shake up the family. No doubt she's done it many times in the past. So it's obvious there would be this reservation.
Now this song, Whose Honey Are You, is a standard from the 30s that was originally performed by Henry Allen. And I'd like to take a few minutes and get into the overall story of the film and how it related to the family of Jennifer Jason Leigh and Barbara Turner. Georgia is in many ways an autobiographical film, as it was written by Jennifer Jason Leigh's mother and based on the relationship between Leigh and her older sister, whose name was Carrie. So it'd be good to have some background on the family and how that involved into the project. And in 1957, the actress-writer Barbara Turner married the actor-director Vic Morrow. The following year, their daughter Carrie Ann Morrow was born. Director Robert Altman became friends with them and hired Turner to write the screenplay for Petulia, which was finally made by Richard Lester 10 years later. In 1962, Jennifer Lee Morrow was born, later to become known as Jennifer Jason Leigh. The same year, Altman directed Vic Morrow in 10 episodes of Combat. In 1964, Morrow assaulted Turner, putting her in the hospital. Turner and the children went into hiding. This was only publicly revealed by Leigh in 2018 when Phoebe Cates interviewed her for Interview magazine. The reason for the assault is unclear, and I don't want to spread rumors, but the rumors were that Turner was having an affair with Altman. And at that time, she was acting in Altman's film Nightmare in Chicago. She also met her future husband, Reza Badi, on that shoot. In any case, Morrow and Turner were divorced. In 1968, Turner married Badi, who was the TV director and Altman's former assistant director. 2 years later, their child Mina Badi was born. In 1974, a 16-year-old Carrie Ann, who was always getting into trouble, ran away from home and joined a carnival. Jennifer had responded to her sister's constant battles with her parents by retreating into herself, cleaning her room, reading, and basically becoming the best little girl in the world, which she would play later on. The relationship between the two sisters became the backbone of Georgia later on. In 1976, Badi cast Jennifer in her first acting role in Beretta. Jennifer met Mare Winningham at an arts camp where she was entranced by Winningham's singing. 3 years older, Winningham was her camp counselor. Jennifer wrote to Turner that she should meet Winningham, a girl with a voice from God. That was from her letter, and it made it into this film.
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you said that.
On Jennifer's 14th birthday, Vic Morrow confessed to her about his abuse of her mother. He also offered her drugs around this time, and she turned him down. Both Vic and Carrie Morrow had drug problems.
Yeah, it's interesting because Jennifer Jason Leigh has played a number of drug addicts, but yet everything indicates that she never actually ever got heavily into drugs. Yeah, and she certainly had the opportunity to. Yeah,
she saw what happened to her sister and became a heroin addict, so I think that has a lot to do with her completely avoiding that. In 1978, Jennifer was signing up for the Screen Actors Guild and decided to change her name to Jennifer Lee because she wanted to make it herself and not ride on her father's coattails. There was already a Jennifer Lee in SAG, so she added Jason as a tribute to family friend Jason Robart.
Ah.
The name change made Vic Morrow angry and drove them even further apart. In 1981, Leigh played a part similar to her recent childhood in Best Little Girl in the World. Her character's sister is always getting into trouble and gets all the attention from their parents. Leigh's character reacts by withdrawing into herself and eventually becoming anorexic. The same year, Winningham starred in the TV movie Freedom, which was written by Turner and based on Carrie running away from home and joining the carnival. Freedom could be seen as a precursor to Georgia, with Winningham playing the Sadie part. Winningham moved in with Turner to help her performance and stayed in Leigh's room as Leigh was out of the country. Carrie came back from the carnival to be technical advisor on the film. Winningham met William Maple, the carnival owner, and another technical advisor, who was then, at that point, Carrie's estranged husband. Winningham and Maple married the following year. So we see many years before Georgia, Leigh, Winningham, and Turner were already linked together in autobiographical films. In 1982, Vic Morrow died in a terrible helicopter accident while shooting The Twilight Zone. He left Leigh $1 in one will and $100 in another. Carrie received the remainder of his estate. Leigh and Carrie also received an undisclosed settlement from their lawsuit against the production company. Leigh's feelings about her father's death were very complex, and she entered therapy. She has said she put a wall up against her own emotions and threw herself into her work as a way of dealing with it. In 1985, Turner and Badie divorced, and in 1987, Turner wrote another TV movie Winningham starred in, Eye on the Sparrow. In 1990, Leigh had the idea for Georgia while shooting Rush and asked Turner to write the screenplay. Turner flew to Texas to meet with her and discuss her idea. The basic idea was based on Leigh's relationship with her sister Carrie. One sister, Georgia, a professional singer, has talent, and the other, Sadie, does not. However, Sadie has great passion and lives life to the fullest, while Georgia is more sedate. They are opposites but still have a strong bond. Sadie needs to be validated by Georgia, but Georgia cannot give that to her. In fact, Sadie wishes she could be Georgia. The impossibility of this leads her into self-destruction. However, she never gives up trying. Even though Leigh is more like Georgia in real life, she decided to play Sadie. However, it's not quite right to say Leigh was Georgia and Carrie was Sadie. While Carrie had a difficult upbringing and became a heroin addict, she was the one with the beautiful voice. Though Leigh has had a successful career as an actress and is fairly grounded and responsible, she doesn't have the voice and wishes she did. Also, it's clear from Leigh's performances that she is capable of great passion. Leigh said in an interview with Premiere, "What I began to realize was that the more Sadie steals, the more Sadie becomes herself. This girl who thinks she has no identity really does have something really strong that is utterly hers. She just doesn't realize it."
Now, Vic Morrow, I first knew of Vic Morrow when I saw Twilight Zone, actually in 1983, Twilight Zone the movie, in the first segment, and I also knew him from Roots. Now, I don't know if you want to get into this, but his death on Twilight Zone, the movie. Roger Ebert, who gave this film 3.5 stars, he's always been a champion of Jennifer Jason Leigh. I think almost every movie that she's done, he's given a high rating. He's always appreciated her. But as you know, can you tell us about the Hitcher? A little about the Hitcher and his reaction to the Hitcher and with what happened with Vic Morrow? The helicopter scene in the Hitcher.
Oh yeah, well tell me about
the only Jennifer Jason Leigh movie that Ebert has absolutely despised was The Hitcher, because he felt it was immoral to have Jennifer Jason Leigh being chased by a helicopter when it was a helicopter that killed her father. So I always found that a bit interesting. I don't know.
Do you want to introduce?
Oh yeah, here we have Sadie's band, I believe. No, this is John Doe's band.
Yeah,
John Doe's band, and you will notice there is someone in the band who has actually become quite well known and even an Oscar nominee, and that is the drummer. See if you could see him, John C. Reilly. John C. Reilly became well known with Boogie Nights, and let's see, who else do we have in the band?
Well, John Doe, of course, was the lead singer for X, or I'd say co-lead singer with Exene, which is a band that Jennifer Jason Leigh was very into growing up. She saw them play out a lot. And when she was looking for putting the cast together, she went to see John Doe play and spoke to him afterwards. He was in a bad mood, disappointed with the show, and didn't recognize her. She saw how that could work for Bobby. For a musician, he took his acting seriously and spent a month preparing the character. In the film, he plays and sings below his normal ability because they're a bar band that's not really going anywhere. He said it was difficult to figure out how to do it without sounding fake. It was hard not to cringe after hitting a bad note. Doe said about Bobby that he's someone who has a lot more talent than he's willing to pursue, which is the opposite of Sadie in a way. He also said Bobby found a steady gig that pays the rent and he's satisfied with that.
Okay, here we have, I think this is the first performance in the film by Sadie, with Almost Blue. And there you see John C. Reilly on the drums. He's completely, I think he's like messed up the entire film. I mean, really. The guitar player, can you tell us who the guitar player is? I'm not sure.
Sure. So that is Leland is the character. He's played by Smokey Hormel. He's a session guitarist. He's played with a lot of top artists, Tom Waits, Mick Jagger, Neil Diamond, Marianne Faithfull, Katie Lang, and Joe Strummer. And at the time of Georgia, he was already playing and recording with John Doe, so he was an easy choice for Sadie's band. And after Georgia, he toured with Beck and recorded 2 albums with him, then joined with Johnny Cash for his final album and tour. And he played to the soundtracks of 2 David Lynch films, The Straight Story and Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me, in which he appears on stage as well in a very memorable bar scene. Okay. And more recently, he was back with Beck for his tour and Grammy-winning album Morning Phase.
Okay. I'd like to talk about Jennifer Jason Leigh's makeup here. You know, she has those raccoon eyes, very black. I'm not sure if she did her own makeup or if there was a makeup artist on the film. Do you happen to know? If the costumes, for example?
There was a makeup artist on the film, but Jennifer came up with the eyeshadow thing herself. She just kept adding more and more until it was like a raccoon face.
I figured that. And I've read some think this is a composite maybe of Louise Brooks and Courtney Love. I'm not sure if she took inspiration from those artists, but I guess one could certainly assume maybe she did.
Yeah, actually,
her look.
Leigh was asked about Courtney Love, and she said she didn't base the character on Courtney Love, which
that makes sense because
maybe it's too close or too far. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I think as out there as this character is, she also has a quietness about her that I don't see Courtney Love having. Like, I can't even imagine Courtney Love singing this. This is such a devastating performance, one of many in the film, and what I think causes this film to stand out from the usual film about musicians.
Absolutely. So in this,
look how shy she looks. As there's like this shame. She just has this shame on her and insecurity. It's like she's a walking insecurity.
So in that song, John Doe, he was kind of advising Leigh on the singing aspects since she wasn't a professional singer. And what he said was, "Sing sweetly. Don't try to seek the nakedness of Almost Blue. Sing it as simply as you can, as best as you can. The nakedness is in the words and your character." So I'd like to go into some of the production history of the film. So it might take a few minutes, but we'll just go straight through and we'll get some background on that. So Jennifer had the idea, like I said, while shooting Rush, and she thought her mother would be the perfect person to write it, and so Barbara Turner began doing extensive research, including spending time in Seattle, immersing herself in the music scene. It was Leigh's idea to shoot in Seattle. Leigh paid for her to write the script, as well as for the research trips and for her assistant. Turner based elements on the musician characters from musicians she met. She also stayed with Winningham for 2 weeks to see how she related to her family, the way she cooked, etc. When they offered Winningham the part of Georgia, she was reluctant at first because the blend of fiction and autobiographical elements made her uncomfortable, but she eventually came around. After Turner's research was complete, she spent a month writing the script. Turner said when writing, she let the characters guide her rather than following a story outline, which that really comes through if you see a few films she's written, they're all kind of like that. The last days of writing the script, she wrote 16 hours a day. Winningham and Leigh made lists of singers they liked, some of which were incorporated into the script. Leigh's list included Lou Reed, Sid Straw, Elvis Costello, Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and Astrid Gilberta. Van Morrison was on Winningham's list, and Turner selected his song Take Me Back, which became a real centerpiece of the film. The film took 3 years to get financing. No American distributor would even consider financing it. Finally, Leigh pitched the idea to the French distributor Civi 2000 at Cannes and secured financing. Before the shoot, Leigh bought a karaoke machine to practice with and was very upset with how her voice sounded. Her mother advised her not to think about it and to just throw herself into the character. Once she was in Seattle rehearsing with the band, she became more comfortable. She sang with John Doe and Smokey Hormel at the Crocodile, and though she was very nervous before the show, once she was singing, she didn't want to get off stage. Director Ulo Grossbar, who hadn't directed a film in 10 years, he'd been directing plays, was chosen partly because he agreed with their desire to shoot the music scenes live. Every other director had said that was a terrible idea. Grossbard, Leigh, and Turner produced the film together. Grossbard had worked as an assistant director in the 60s for Sidney Lumet, Arthur Penn, Elia Kazan, and Robert Rossen. He only directed 7 films in his career, but 4 actors from his films received Oscar nominations. He directed some of the finest American film actors, including Dustin Hoffman, Harry Dean Stanton, Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Robert Duvall, and Meryl Streep. He was probably best known as a theater director who had many successes on Broadway, including 2 Tony nominations. Grossbard had grown up with classical music. He did his own research by listening to rock and roll, visiting clubs, and hanging out with musicians. Crossbred shot this script as written and would not allow the actors to change the dialogue. He said the dialogue had its own music and rhythms and couldn't be changed. However, in terms of the blocking, he gave the actors leeway in how they related to the environment. He said, when you work with very good actors, you want to take advantage of what they have to contribute. No matter how much planning I do in terms of blocking, I always like to give them leeway to see what they come up with on their own. Good actors have a sense of wavelength. They will adjust their relationships to the physical surroundings and to the behavior that the characters in the scenes demand in a very instinctive way. For Georgia, he received a Best Director award from the Montreal World Film Festival and was nominated for an Independent Spirit Award. The cinematographer Jen Kieser, hope I'm pronouncing that right, was Ellen Rudolph's cinematographer on 4 films, including Mrs. Parker with Leigh. He also shot Dr. T and the Women for Altman. The shooting style could not be any more different between Mrs. Parker, which he had shot right before this, and Georgia. Mrs. Parker is very stylized, shot in scope with long lenses, diffusion, moody lighting, and also included black and white segments. Mm-hmm. Georgia has a raw, unfiltered look, shot completely on location with naturalistic lighting. It's shot in the 1:8:5 ratio with wide lenses, in general, keeping everything in focus. Grossbard said, I was going for a look that was vulnerable, edgy, and a little rough. They used a jib frequently to allow for fluid movements. Steadicam was used on locations where a dolly track wouldn't be practical. And the one long dolly shot in the film is during the walk Axel and Georgia take together. For the concerts, there were 4 Panavision cameras and occasionally a handheld camera, and handheld was not used elsewhere in the film.
Okay, speaking of Axel, here we have Max Pierre-Luc, a very great character actor. He became first well known in Drugstore Cowboy, and he had worked with Jennifer Jason Leigh before in Rush. And speaking of the Independent Spirit Awards, he was also nominated for Supporting Actor, along with Uso Grover for Best Director. They have a very good working relationship here. Clearly, he's younger than her, and you can kind of see in this scene the subtle manipulations of him as he's younger. I'm not sure how they first met or how he became involved. Do you know about that, Derek? Did they meet on the set of Rush, or did they meet before that?
I believe they met on the set of Rush, and as I said before, Leah had the idea for Georgia while shooting Rush, and she said she was affected by her work with Max Perlich in that film and asked if her mother could use him as a study while she was writing the script and record their conversations. similar to what she did with Mare Winningham. Pierre-Luc didn't know what the script was about until they called him in on the film. So she had been interviewing him, but she didn't say exactly what it was for. So his manner of speech, like saying very much so, and the things he spoke of from his own life, like fixing up cars and breaking up with his girlfriend, had worked their way into the script, and it was only natural that he should play that character. Pierre-Luc said that Crossbred said he was not good looking enough to play Leigh's boyfriend. And Leigh and Turner said, really wanted him. They said Crossbred should take another look and meet up with him again. And they wound up bonding over Cuban music, and he got the part.
Because really, this relationship has nothing to do with looks anyway. If you think about it, it's all about power dynamics, I guess. At least for Jennifer Jason Leigh's character. For Sadie, she tends to be with men that either control her or that she can control. And in this case, clearly she's going to be the one in control. Exactly. Here's the bar mitzvah scene.
Yeah, in the script, they sing yet another Velvet Underground song, I'm Sticking With You, instead of Yosel, Yosel.
Interesting.
Their band is almost like a Velvet Underground cover band.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the songs they do are either Velvet Underground or Lou Reed songs.
Yeah. This song is actually in Hebrew, I think. Right. Let's see. Yotso, Yotso, I believe is the name of it, by Samuel Steinberg.
And Jennifer Jason Leigh's of Russian Jewish heritage, so I'm sure that she would have sung that at some point for the film. So I just wanted to mention a bit more about the production. Carrie Morrow, Leigh's sister, came back again to be the technical advisor on the film. She was now clean and became a drug counselor soon afterwards. In an interview with Mirabella magazine, Carrie said, "My drug of choice had been heroin. Jennifer asked me to come and guide her through those scenes. Jenny saw me getting in a lot of trouble, and she didn't want that attention. I've been a thief, I've been a prostitute, I've run the gamut trying to fulfill something. That Jenny finds that fulfillment as an actress. She can experience the wild things without the consequences."
Okay. So, this film premiered at Cannes in 1994?
95.
95,
Yeah.
sorry, 95. Here, she's self-medicating with anything she can get. What is that, NyQuil?
Yeah.
NyQuil?
Well, she has the flu. But I'm sure that isn't all she's taking.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it premiered in 95 in May at the Cannes Film Festival. It went on to play at the New York Film Festival. I actually saw it on September 30th, 1995. I'll never forget that date. I was excited. I just moved to New York, and it was my first time at the New York Film Festival, and she was there, and it's one of the best film-going experiences I've had in my life. And I happened to be a manager at a movie theater called Lincoln Plaza Cinemas, which was in the same vicinity of the New York Film Festival. It was owned by Dan Talbot, who was well known for getting foreign films released in this country and playing independent films. And I remember at that time I wasn't even a manager. I was just an usher and a box office attendant. And I called him over to the box office. Usually staff were a little afraid to speak to him if they weren't managers, but I was so obsessed with Georgia that I had to tell him about it. And I said, "Mr. Talbot, there's this movie called Georgia. I saw it at the New York Film Festival. You really should screen it." He did his own private screenings in the morning. And apparently he did, because a week later he came up to me and at the box office says, that was a good picture, Carl. It was a really good picture. And then about a month later, I saw the poster in the lobby, and I felt pretty good. I felt like I did something. I brought the attention of Georgia, and it played there for a few months, and I watched it as much as I could. And that's kind of my history with Georgia. When did you first see it?
It was, I think it might have been at Lincoln Plaza.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah. It was definitely in the theater. I saw it as many times as I could after that.
Yeah, it opened on December 8th, 1995, so a couple months after the New York Film Festival. Oh wow, look at her here. This is just incredible. Look at the way the lighting is on her eyes.
Oh,
And there she's in that corner, like she's like fading away, like so small. The background. I'll be your mirror.
yeah. So when Georgia came out, it actually kind of made some waves. It got a lot of recognition from critics, played at festivals, got some prizes, and I think part of the reason we wanted to do this commentary is it's kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit recently. It was released on DVD once, never reissued. It hasn't been released on Blu-ray, which is really unfortunate because it does have a lot of fans.
Yeah, I looked on YouTube, and the scene where she does "Take Me Back," there are like 300,000 views of that alone. So it definitely has its fans.
Yeah, there is a HD version you can stream on Amazon, which is currently the best way to watch it. But yeah, we're definitely hoping that someone will put it on Blu-ray.
She won Best Actress from the New York Film Critics Circle, a very prestigious group. She was nominated from the National Society of Film Critics, of course, along with Ulu Grosbarg at the Montreal World Film Festival. He won Best Director and she won Best Actress. Of course, famously, she was not nominated for Best Actress from the Oscars, the Academy Awards. Instead, they nominated Mare Winningham for Best Supporting Actress, which is really fitting for this film because in the film, which is named Georgia after her sister, Sadie is always in the shadows. She's never really in the spotlight, and that happened. That was like the mirror of the Oscars. This film is so much Jennifer Jason Leigh. It's probably one of the best female performances I've ever seen. Certainly one of hers. She pours her heart and soul into this film. I showed it to a friend a week ago, and he was stunned by it, and yet the Academy could not find room for her, for the 5 actresses. But again, it kind of was fitting that Mare Winningham was nominated.
Yeah, and if you read the reviews from that time, they're all about Leigh. I mean, of course, they mention Mare Winningham also, but it's pretty much Leigh's film, and that's what people talk about.
Now, I mean, in a way, her character is a bit polarizing. I have read some comments online and some reviews where people just cannot stand her character. I mean, it's understandable. You need to have empathy and, be willing to... She shows you something that a lot of people might not want to see. It's not a comfortable performance. And I could imagine that Mare Winningham's performance is, it's a very good performance, but it's safe, It's not polarizing. So
yeah,
that might be something that happened.
Right. The interesting thing is Mare Winningham's performance is very subtle. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on, which is tricky to do. What Leigh does, it's you could say it's not that she's over the top, but she's very intense. But there's a lot of subtlety going on there too. So mm-hmm. She's doing everything.
That's right. That's why I said there are quiet moments in her performance too. It's not just some Courtney Love loud spectacle. There's a lot of quietness in her performance as well. Even right now, the way she's listening to him, you can see her brain working as she's saying these things, as he's saying how beautiful she is. She knows deep down that she feels she's ugly inside, but yet this young man is falling for her, and how could she resist that?
So this song, Arizona
Katie
Moon,
Lang.
is...
Katie Lang was very popular at the time of this film. This woman always reminded me of her.
Yeah, she actually... This band is called Ranch Romance, and they actually toured with Katie Lang. So
okay.
I guess she got the hairdo idea from that.
But yeah, as you were saying, it is a shame that it's never got a proper Blu-ray release, or that maybe even Criterion couldn't release it. I know Miramax, its distributor doesn't exist anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
has anything
I
to
think
do
a
with
lot
it.
of their films are in kind of legal limbo.
Yes.
But since they didn't actually produce it, they just distributed it in the U.S. I don't see how that would prevent it from being released, at least in France or elsewhere.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think
think
it just
people have
slipped
to
through the
make some
cracks.
noise and let's get it out there.
Yeah, it needs to be rediscovered.
Mm. There is a really nice print that Quentin Tarantino owns, and he lends it out for screenings. So I got the chance to see it a couple times in the last few years. So if you see this as screening, you definitely want to check it out in the theater with an audience.
Yeah, actually, I think it was recently screened. Let me see.
Yeah, I believe there was a screening about a year ago that John Doe
In
was.
France. In France at the Champs-Élysées, sorry for my pronunciation, it was screened in 2018 at a film festival in France in June. As far as I can tell, that was the last screening of it. Other than that, it hasn't really been shown much since the 90s. Here in New York, where we're doing this recording, we have a lot of repertory theaters, many, and I don't recall ever seeing it as any.
Well, it played at Jennifer Jason Leigh retrospective.
Right, yes, sorry, that's right.
Right,
That's right.
at the Draft House.
And you went to see that, correct?
Yes, I saw it.
And
there.
it was a print.
Right, that was
Yeah.
Tarantino's print.
Ah, okay.
I
see.
think when he was at Miramax, they probably, since he was making so much money for him, they probably just let him have prints of his favorite films that they distributed.
And of course, the connection there is Hateful Eight.
Right.
And then that's Jennifer Jason Leigh finally got her Oscar nomination for that role.
No, in this scene at George's house, this scene's much longer in the script. There's a lot more of Axel in the scene. He's reading a book to the kids. He's talking to Sadie's father about his childhood and how much he loves Sadie. And Barbara Turner told the Boston Globe, Georgia is a combination of Mare and Jennifer, except that Jennifer, when she works, takes enormous risks. Sadie was born out of something else. Some of Jennifer's elder sister, Carrie, who lives out on the edge, was able to really go out there and get slammed down and get up again. There's much of Carrie and Sadie, and so Jennifer really understands Sadie, but she's much more like Georgia. I didn't have to reach very far because I grew up with them, my own sister, and then having 3 daughters and watching their dynamics.
Here, they're speaking about their father for the first time in the film, talking about the relationship with their father.
So maybe this isn't the right time to mention it, but this is a long scene, so let me quote Ulu Grossbard. He said, "The key decision I made at Barbara Turner's urging was to record the music live. All except one of the 14 music supervisors I spoke with told me I was crazy. The music is so much a part of the characters and the storytelling, with the story of the relationship between the sisters, the hidden meanings of the story. I knew the life of it was very much dependent upon revealing it live. Despite the problems posed by recording the music live, I made the commitment to doing it that way. I spoke with Robert Altman, who had recorded the music live for Nashville and Shortcuts, and he said to make sure I shot my close-ups early. You're going to have to do something to playback at some point, but if you shoot your close-up and you've got what you want, both from an acting point of view and musically, you can then do a quick temporary mix and use that as a master track to do your wide coverage."
Here she's wearing a scarf around her neck. In the earlier scene. She's doing a lot with her physical, her hands, and
yeah,
this is a
and
really good scene.
And she's kind of blocking the scene herself the way she moves around on that chair. So it seemed really rehearsed, like in a way, but natural at the same time. It's almost like a stage play, the scene, the way that they're using the space around them.
Yeah, you know, who did the art direction of this film? I'm looking at the you know, this house. It's so like everything is kind of perfect. Very, you know, like Georgia herself, very contained and organized, sharp contrast from the apartments we see Sadie living in.
Well, Lester Cohen was the production designer, and it's interesting, absolutely not a single scene from the film was shot on the set. So a lot of times they would take what was there and work with it, other times they brought things in, but it was basically just making everything as real as possible and trying to reveal things about the characters by what they were relating to in the scene. And maybe you can introduce the father character.
Oh yeah, the father is played by Tom Bauer. Tom Bauer. He has actually 173 credits. He's definitely a character actor. He's been in a lot of films. His first film was actually by John Cassavetes, Shadows. And recently, he was in Casey Affleck's Light of My Life. So he's still working. That's on Amazon right now. It's a 2019 release. And yeah, I don't know much about him other than that, but he makes an impression in this role. Have you seen Shadows?
Oh yeah,
I haven't seen
it.
Yeah,
unfortunately. You gotta check that out. And there are two versions. Everyone argues over which is the best one.
Oh.
There's one that's really down and dirty, and then there's one that's slightly more polished in the editing. But they both have their detractors and their admirers.
So here we are. They're playing house. Axel definitely has the more domestic role. You see, he was making a bed.
Yeah, I can't imagine she would clean up after herself too often.
And and there's a scene coming up where she's on top. She's definitely the dominant in a scene, which is very different from when we first meet her when she's with Jimmy Witherspoon. She's totally passive.
Axel seems a little bit like he's afraid of her almost, and she's trying to. Obviously, she cares about him a lot, but I think he's really madly in love with her.
Yeah.
And also, he's someone who wants to be in love. I think he sees love as the answer to everything.
Yeah.
And she's a little more worldly, and she's, as she says, I've been with a lot of men. She knows there's a certain process, and they're going through it, and there's going to be an end at some point.
Here's her big wedding. Of course, it's just, the courthouse.
It's one of the only scenes where you actually get a little bit of Seattle, besides just interiors of a nightclub or George's house.
Now, Axel's supposed to be, I think, 24 in this film. I'm not sure how old the actor is and how old Jennifer Jason Leigh is at this time. Her character, I suppose, she's in her mid-30s maybe, early 30s. Yeah. But Jennifer Jason Leigh, when was she born? What year was she born? I think it was 1964.
I think maybe 64.
Yeah.
I should know that.
But anyway, definitely she is the older woman in the relationship. Let's see her. Yeah, she was 62. 62. Oh, right, she was born on February 5th, 1962. Yeah.
So this song that they sing, If I Wanted, that was actually in Mare Winningham's album that had come out a couple of years before the film. So I think there's two songs that Mare Winningham wrote that wound up in the film.
Oh.
So in the script, they were also going to sing Buckets of Rain by Bob Dylan. And they did sing it in a KCRW broadcast, which is on the JJL Channel 2 YouTube page, which if you're a fan of the film, definitely want to check out that broadcast. It's the only live recording of the band other than in the film. And there's also an interview with Jennifer and with John Doe and Barbara Turner as well.
I think this is the second best concert scene in the film for me, just because of the contrast between the two. And if you listen to the lyrics, it's just incredible. It just really shows their relationship and how Sadie feels in contrast to her sister. And the tone of their voices, the way they sing. One is so smooth and composed and beautiful, but Sadie is so raw and passionate. And maybe her voice might get on some people's nerves, but the feeling really comes out and you feel it. And look at these lyrics.
I remember this scene would get a laugh when in the theater when Jennifer starts singing.
Yes.
Because it's like she's doing the rawest punk vocals for this song.
Yes.
And I think she's actually making them rawer than she normally does, because there's some anger against her sister in a way, and she's like almost fighting against her with the song. But at the same time, there's this great bond, and you can tell that they love each other too. So it's definitely sibling rivalry pushed to the max.
Yeah, the anger really comes out here. Every time I hear your name, I fall 4 steps behind. When I have only climbed up 2, I think that's just says so much about how she feels in relation to her sister. And look at her face. Look at this. Look at that. Look, she's like, again, she's smiling and crying at the same time. She's trying so hard not to burst into tears with a smile. It's happened a number of times in the film. Yeah, it's hard not to just watch them do this.
Yeah, it's tempting to just keep watching the film and not stop talking. It's going to be hard to talk over the next concert scene with the two of them.
Which I would say for me is the ultimate and centerpiece scene of the film. I probably watched that scene, I can't even count how many times. Working at Lincoln Plaza, where it played for a few months, I would check my anytime I could go in the theater and watch that scene, I would, and I would just watch the people, in awe of it or repulsed by it. Most of the time it seemed in awe. A couple times we got some walkouts.
So Ulu Crossbred told Cineast magazine, the budget was too small. You always want more and need more. But the upside of it is that you take risks, like the live recording. Studio made Georgia would have cost $30 million. With that kind of money at stake, you have to play it safe. Here, we could afford not to.
Okay, here we have. So I'm wondering with these bars that they were, I guess they were able to get the locations pretty easily. I guess the Live Aid scene, that should be an interesting story behind that. But okay, yeah. George's husband always seems to be, or definitely seems to understand Sadie more. Maybe because he's not so close to it, so it's easier for him to understand her. I think in life sometimes if you're too close to someone, it's harder to see the big picture.
Also, Sadie kind of loves him too. I think she's jealous of her sister about him too, and I think probably for his male ego, that's a good thing. So
she swallows people up. She swallows people up. Yeah.
It's very true when he says she's without malice.
Yeah.
Even though she basically leeches off people, whether for money, for fame, for drugs, anything she can get from somebody, she'll go for it. But at the same time, she's not cruel to anyone. She's the only person she really hurts is herself. So she might be not the most attractive character to some people because she's, she could be a nightmare if you have someone like that in your life.
Yeah.
You're always dealing with them, taking care of them.
Yes. I've known some people like that, and it's extremely draining. It's like an emotional vampire. But, here she is flirting with this young boy. Yeah, this John C. Reilly, he is just... I was almost turned off by him when I first saw this. He was just so messed up. It was just but it's good. It works.
He adds a little comedy to it.
Yeah, that's
Even
true.
though he's being pretty realistic with his character.
Yeah, okay, here we go. We got to cut you loose. Yeah. He's like, what? Why? Huh?
Yeah. I mean, most people on heroin aren't even that out of it, compared to him. He's like really gone. I mean,
he doesn't know what day of the week it is.
It makes sense when he said he was homeless before, because he's obviously somebody who can't really take care of himself.
Yeah, but you have to say the performance is pretty good. He really looks like he's on something.
You can see in the background the new drummer is already there, sitting at the drum kit,
I didn't
just
notice
waiting
that.
for him to leave so he can get started. So this scene is pretty rough. I mean, not only are they throwing him out of the band, but they already have his replacement there while he's being thrown out.
Yeah, I first saw him actually not in Boogie Nights, but in Hard Eight, Paul Thomas Anderson's Hard Eight. And there's a connection. Jennifer Jason Leigh, I believe, is friends with Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh, right.
So there's always some connection.
I'm surprised she hasn't been in any of his films. I think she had a cameo in one of his films in a jail scene, like as an extra. But
yeah.
Well,
I easily could see her play Manola Walters' character in Magnolia, the character who's shut in all the time and using a lot of coke.
Mm-hmm.
If Jennifer Jason Leigh had been younger when that was made, she totally could have played that part. Yeah. Who's this guy? Not him, the other one.
The bass player?
Yeah, this here, him.
It's Tony Morisco. He was the bassist for the Plugs, and he did the score for, the Plugs did the score for Repo Man, so he was involved with that, and he was also John Doe's bass player. He's also played with Dr. John, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Roger Daltrey. I mean, this guy's a real pro. I think it was tough for a lot of these guys. They were such good musicians that to play a bar band, they had to kind of, not play as well as they normally did, and intentionally, bring it down a little bit.
This scene here, it used to be difficult for me to get through, because of the scene that's coming up. Mm-hmm. I just felt like I had to sit through this scene to get to that scene.
I always like this scene a lot because it's slow, but it really feels like you're in that room with them.
Oh, it does.
You know what I mean?
I can't fault it for that. Mm-hmm. But I remember that when I was younger, sometimes I was like, oh, I got it. Because the scene coming up was like a rush for me. So this was like waiting for that rush. Alcohol's bad shit, man. She had just put some alcohol in both their drinks.
In their coffee or tea or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was the only member of the band who wasn't a professional musician. Mm-hmm. They asked if he could play drums, and he said, oh, yeah. So then he played drums a little bit when he was a kid, and then he had to basically learn again. But he was saying, well, I'm not supposed to be a great drummer anyway, right. So just sort of like with Leigh singing,
Do you like her pants?
Yeah. And her Coney Island t-shirt. Something tells me he couldn't always get a gig, even though he says that.
So I think we're coming up on the big scene. Is that right? At the Live Aid.
It's coming up a little bit later. There's a couple scenes before that.
How many times have you seen this film, Derek?
Oh man, a lot. I don't want to watch it too often because I don't want to have it lose its power, but that doesn't seem to have happened so far. So, of course, I watched it a couple times recently because of this commentary, but. Yeah, that never gets old.
Yeah, again, the reviews were pretty universally good. Couldn't really find any bad reviews, except by some users on IMDb and Letterboxd, and of course their complaints were that they just couldn't stand her character. Which isn't really a review of the film, it's more a review of the character. Mm-hmm. So if you can't empathize with her character, I guess it would be pretty tough to get through the film. But I've always liked films that explore, characters who are not generally accepted by society. Mm-hmm. And that's, besides being a Jennifer Jason Leigh fan, that's why this film really spoke to me. And, I've worked with addicts. I've had a lot of experience with addiction, and I could certainly identify with the pain of her character, and she did a really excellent job at conveying that.
Yeah. I admire actors who are willing to play characters that aren't likable.
Right.
It's kind of like the opposite of a movie star
Yes.
who wants everyone to love them and they want to be popular. And real acting, I think, is about getting inside the character and leaving all the politics and your career and all those things. That should be secondary.
Yeah, I agree. Here she is on top. I'm sure that was, that was a conscious choice.
Yeah, this was the only scene in the film where Barbara Turner wasn't on set.
I don't blame her.
For obvious reasons. Leigh said, "There are always these lines that I say to myself that I will not cross, and that was one of them. Even if you're pretending making love, you don't want your mother in the room."
Oh, this scene is very interesting. Look at this. He just sees her there. She's singing. It's very, look at the very. This I can identify with. I've had moments like this, and I've seen people in this kind of quiet despair.
Right. The song she's singing is "Take Me to Aranda," which was originally performed by Astrid Gilberto, and that was one of the songs that she personally selected for the film.
I think this was Jennifer Jason Leigh's last really, really, really big, juicy role. I mean, she did Anniversary Party not long after this, I think about a few years later. But as far as I can remember, this was like her last real iconic performance. And what a great one to go on. But I do miss her, I mean, luckily we had Hateful Eight. But, it's past year, it hasn't been, if you're a Jennifer Jason Leigh fan, it's kind of been disappointing not to see her in more roles. But, when actresses get older, that's just what happens. Every time I see a lot of films where I always think, oh, Jennifer Jason Leigh would have played that part. If
and I think now, since she got the Oscar nomination, her price probably went up. So she winds up, she's been in higher budget films, but the flip side of that is she's playing smaller parts, because generally in Hollywood films you want a younger person as the lead. Generally.
Well, at least we've had some Annihilation, that was really great, and Natalie Portman was a star, but Jennifer Jason Leigh certainly made an impression. And then she has a film coming up. I guess it's sci-fi horror or horror fantasy.
There's 3 films coming out this year that all look pretty interesting. So she's still definitely making interesting choices.
And one is with David Cronenberg's son. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and she did, of course, Existence. Actually, Existence was after this, so that was another great role.
Yeah, that was a great leading role for her.
Yeah.
So
this is one of the few scenes without Sadie.
Right,
there aren't very many scenes without her in it.
But it's interesting, the relationship between Georgia and Axel. They both are similar in a lot of ways. They're both rational people who have a sense of responsibility for people they care about. And here we go.
Now it's Northwest AIDS Foundation. When this film came out, AIDS was still very much a problem. So it makes sense that this, I'm not sure if the film actually takes place in 94, 95. It might take place in the early 90s. I don't know if that's clear, but certainly the time period is the time of Seattle and grunge and also the AIDS crisis. So here she's actually pretty nervous about doing this performance. Yeah. It's a big one. And I'm going to go out.
So this song Georgia is singing here is Mercy. It's by Kurt Stevenson. And in the script, there was a scene right after this where Georgia brings Chris Cornell from Soundgarden on stage to sing Wild Horses by the Stones. So I don't know if they shot that, or maybe that was a pipe dream to get him, or to get that song. It couldn't have been cheap. If you notice in the scene, Axel's fingering his ring, and he already seems a little uncertain about the way things are going.
Thing.
It's pretty much ending between them.
Right. Yeah.
Once you see the film a few times and you watch Axel, just by the look on his
language.
face, Yeah, the way Sadie's flirting with her sister's husband. Yeah.
He's young and
yeah.
he's scared. You know, when you're young and you're in love, you don't think about, you know, what's down the road, or you think you can overcome anything that any obstacle. You think, oh, we can get through it. But yeah, the reality is setting in that she's a lot to handle.
Yeah, and he obviously doesn't want her to be drinking now, but
Right.
he also is smart enough not to tell her not to, because it would be kind of pointless even trying.
Right.
So he's almost giving up.
And I noticed in the sex scene, it almost seemed like he wasn't there. She was just like kind of fucking her pain away, or it was just it wasn't like they were making love. Okay.
And now here we go. This is, I don't know what to say. If I was watching this film with the commentary, I would probably turn the commentary off now and just watch the scene. So you do what you like, but anyway, we'll talk through it in case you don't want to do that. So this scene was shot live before 2,500 people at Seattle's Arena Theater who were there to see local bands. They basically put together a one-day festival as a way to get the crowd in. Seeing this scene in the theater with an audience is something else. If you've only seen this on video, trust me, you gotta see it in a theater if you ever have the chance. It's a really strange feeling. It's excitement and discomfort, a combination. And you can, even if nobody's applauding or making noise, that you just have this kind of feeling in the air when you see it that way.
I really like the way it's shot too. Like this shot right here, like you're on the stage with her, and yeah, you can see Axel is like oh.
So Leigh said, before I got up there was a mosh pit. In between setups, I was raffling off t-shirts and stereos and TVs. It was crazy. The next 3 days, we were walking along like the living dead. There was so much adrenaline pumping that it took a couple of days to recover. And John Doe told the Washington Post, I worry it's going to be hard for people to watch. Georgia's embarrassed because she's such a purist that if there isn't that beautiful instrument to carry it through, then it's not good. For my money, I'll take someone who communicates over someone who sings well in a minute. I didn't care if there were bad notes or what. It was happening.
Yeah, I agree with him, because again, I watched this scene so many times because the rawness of it, it's like cathartic for me.
Yeah, and John Doe advised Leigh on her singing, which probably didn't need to, but he said to put as much of Sadie into the song as possible. And that certainly comes through, which is kind of ironic, because Leigh said every pause and every inflection of the song came directly from Van Morrison. So Sadie steals everything, but at the same time, her inner spirit is so alive that it just comes right through.
And why this song? Do you happen to know the history of why this song was chosen?
Well, I know that was on Mare Winningham's list of musicians that they wanted to maybe get the music from for the film while they were writing the script. And then Barbara Turner was the one who found the actual song. And
I wonder, how many times did they do this scene? Was it just one?
I think it was
one time.
It
one take?
was. Okay, here I'll quote Ulu Grossbard on that. He said, "When I heard it on record, I said I wasn't sure if this would hold for 8.5 minutes. When I saw Leigh do it, I knew instantly. She rehearsed on her own for a few days to get her footing. When we shot the scene, we used 4 cameras. We went through the first take, it wasn't quite there. We talked very briefly, and then we went into the second take. I knew in the first 10 seconds of the second take we were home. We just went for broke. That song was very important about what it revealed as the reality of the character."
And when you first saw this scene in the theater, like, do you remember what it was like for you?
Well, it was mesmerizing, really. It's there's so much going on in the scene. It's kind of hard to even put into words. it's like an experience on its own. Just this song.
Because you were already a Jennifer Jason Leigh fan, so this must. I know for me this was like the ultimate. As being a Jennifer Jason Leigh fan, to see this was the
absolutely. Yeah. When you combine the autobiographical elements with the way she just throws herself right into the character. There's so much passion in this, and you
so
see the story of someone's life.
So much soul,
right? So Leigh told the Boston Globe, "The thing is with Sadie that she steals from everybody: Janis Joplin, Elvis Costello, Chet Baker. But the more she steals, the more Sadie she becomes. So when it's Sadie doing that song, you don't get someone mimicking Van Morrison. You get Sadie with all her fears and what little strength she has just pushing through, Sadie doesn't really have a voice, so all she has is who she is. She's got a rawness and a nakedness that's rare. She's a fighter, and she has all the hope in the world and nothing to back it up. I think Sadie will just keep fighting it out, She's not going down. No matter what the world does to her, she will get back on her feet and sing."
Yeah, so I'd say this is probably her most powerful performance. Also, Last Exit to Brooklyn would be one for me. And then her character, Rush, isn't talked about as much, I don't think. But for me, her role in Rush.
Yeah, she was coming off a string of a lot of really good films, getting a lot of notice from the critics. And yeah, she was pretty much the queen of the indies at that point.
Yeah, the whole first part of the 90s, but basically Last Exit to Brooklyn, which I believe was 1989.
Right, and Miami Blues the same year.
Yes.
Got a lot of...
And then that went into Hudsucker Proxy, Rush, Backdraft, which we don't really need to talk too much about. That was ironically her probably highest grossing film.
Right.
But
probably her worst performance in any film.
Yeah, but she wasn't given it. There's not much she could have done with it anyway.
I think what it is she's not meant to be playing normal people.
Right.
There wasn't much to that character, and there was nothing she could get her hooks on to really feel who she was. So I think that was, she just kind of just did it.
But on the plus side, she looked beautiful doing it. She has, I remember the first shot that they showed her, when they showed her, she looked so beautiful. Here, she's not really beautiful in the traditional sense, but she's still beautiful. Everything felt. Oh, now, here Georgia feels she needs to come in and save her. This is probably the worst thing she could have done, at least in Sadie's eyes.
Yeah, and I think in Georgia's mind, she is trying to help her.
Right.
But Sadie's doing Sadie. She doesn't need any help.
Right.
She's not a pro, and that's what Georgia thinks she can give her, a little of that pro help. But if Georgia really could tell what Sadie was doing, I think she wouldn't have stepped in like that.
Right, and that's very well conveyed in the conversation coming up in the car. Yeah. I loved when she says, "Did I need saving, Georgia? How good did it feel to pull me out?" Because it's... For Sadie, it's like she just is doing it not to really help her, but just to feel good about helping her. Just to feel like, oh, I'm so much more together. And this is from Sadie's point of view. I'm not saying that's true or not, but...
And I think when you see this scene, you really understand why they recorded the music live and didn't do playback, because for one thing, singing in front of 2,000 people when you're not a professional singer and you're doing it live like that gives it that edge that it really needs.
Oh, speaking of, did these people know what was going on in terms of that a film was being made?
I think they knew, but they didn't know before they got there, I believe, because they had a bunch of local bands play that day, and people showed up to see them.
Okay.
I think they charged money to get in.
Oh.
Because they didn't have a lot of budget, so by doing that, they were able to get this play. I mean, they couldn't have rented out a 2,000 seat hall to shoot all day. It's like and fill it up. You know, that would have cost a fortune.
Okay, here comes the car scene. So yeah, she's blaming him for her getting drunk, but of course, as he says, it wouldn't make a difference. If she wanted something, she would get it. Addicts, they know how to get off. They can get off without anyone even knowing it. They can do it. They will get their fix if they need it. So, no matter how much you try to stop them.
And almost part of it is secret too, like keeping it hidden.
Yes.
That's part of the whole mentality, I think.
So if anything, he might have helped her by at least just taking her out and to get a few beers.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah, to relax her.
The company and, you know, she needed to get a little loose before she could do that. So.
And in a safer setting, you know, the harm reduction approach. Oh, I whipped your ass. Oh, stern silence. This is great. She's so great here.
So Ulu Grossbard, speaking about Leigh, he said, having never worked with Jennifer before, I could not anticipate how courageous she could be, both as an actress playing a character who was not particularly gifted, and as someone who had no experience as a singer. She had to throw herself in front of an audience and trust that it would be true. She did surprise me. I mean, there was no way of expecting some of the stuff she does in this remarkable performance. She had a very strong and intuitive grasp of the character going in, so we didn't need to have extensive discussions. It was just a matter of guidance, of getting her to trust herself and allowing her to play those scenes moment by moment and not try to anticipate where it was going to go. I assured her that her intuition about the character was so strong that she would land on her feet, and if she didn't, I would be there to catch her. There was always another take.
Yeah, Ulu, he didn't have a very long career. Ulu Grossberg, he had a long career, but he didn't do a lot of films. His first film was actually with Patricia Neal and Martin Sheen. It was called The Subject Was Roses. I haven't seen it. He also did Straight Time. That's fairly well known. Dustin Hoffman, Gary Busey, Harry Dean Stanton. I haven't seen that also.
Oh, you should see that.
I'd like
great.
to. Teresa Russell, I always like her. Falling in Love with Meryl Streep. And then after Georgia, he did one film, which I never saw, with Michelle Pfeiffer, called The Deep End of the Ocean. And then he died in 2012 at age 83. I'm not sure why he didn't do more films.
Well, he was having a great career as a director of plays.
Right.
On
Okay.
Broadway.
So yeah, he was more of a theater director.
Right.
And I guess that's why some of the dialogue scenes in this film are so well done. Some of the scenes were just two people talking.
Yeah, he was definitely
Very
an
well
actor
staged.
director.
But I did see True Confessions. That was relatively popular in 1981 with De Niro and Robert Duvall.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was very selective about the films he directed. He didn't do anything for the paycheck.
Definitely his genre is drama. His first film was actually an Oscar winner. The first film he did, Jack Albertson won Best Actor in a Supporting Role, so 1969. So I'd like to see that film.
Oh yeah, me too.
So you haven't seen any of his other films, have you?
Well, I saw Straight Time.
Straight Time,
yeah,
of course.
that's the only
Okay.
one.
Okay, so here, oh yeah, so they leave them. What song is this?
Midnight Train to
Midnight
Georgia.
Train to Georgia, and that's right. What a great song! And you see, she's back. She's back with John C. Reilly's character. So this is her band now.
Yeah, this might just be a one-time deal with who she could get together with.
Yeah. Yeah. There's.
Midnight Train to Georgia is by Jim Weatherly, and of course that's been done a lot of times by.
Axel's like terrified. He's right. This is the night. This
yeah,
is the night.
You can tell he's
yeah.
halfway out the door already.
Yeah, he's. Yeah.
In fact, I think the next scene is when he leaves her.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's his vintage car that you don't really see much of otherwise.
So the song "Midnight Train to Georgia." I wonder why the name Georgia was. I wonder. Sadie, I don't know, Sadie seems appropriate. The word sad is in the name. But Georgia, I wonder why Georgia? Why that name? There might not be any reason, but...
I think it took them a while to come up with the title. I'm not sure why they decided on that. But
I think the title is appropriate in terms of it being the title of her sister, who's, more respected and gets all the spotlight.
She's in her shot.
Right,
yeah.
But I just wasn't sure why that name. When they first meet, he's delivering groceries, and he's kind of in the same position, always like in the kitchen.
Yeah, he's cooking or cleaning.
They're very rare they're like sitting together on the same couch talking. He's like always like at a distance. It's like he's afraid to even sit down with her. She's been through this before. Yeah, because it's all right.
She kind of uses people until they can't take anymore, and then they leave her.
Yeah. This isn't her first rodeo. And also with people that struggle with addiction, sometimes they set themselves up for this. It gives them a reason to use even more.
Yeah, she definitely starts bottoming out after he leaves.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of a jump in time after that, too.
Does she have some crucifixes in her hair?
Yeah.
I'm 23. Yeah. She trivializes it with that. So Jennifer Jason Leigh has always done a lot of great things with her body language and her hands. You saw she put her hands out and...
She gets some criticism. Some people think she's too mannered. Yeah, but if you're a fan of her, I think that's one of the attractions.
Yeah, it's like Easter eggs.
She has a million different ways of communicating with her body.
Yeah. Let's see. We talked about Mrs. Parker. Washington Square was another one. She was. She hasn't done many period pieces. Washington Square is probably the earliest.
Right. Mrs. Parker.
Oh, unless you talk about Flesh and Blood.
Right. So she goes. No, you can tell a lot of time has passed between when Axel leaves her and when she goes to Chasmin. She's lost a lot of weight. I think you can tell she's kind of spiraling down at this point. I think not having Axel there to take care of her, and then being by herself was probably, she just went down the tubes at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a strange line here where he says, "Did she tell you I'm a homosexual?" Which it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but in the script there was this scene before Chasmin comes home, where Sadie goes to his apartment and she meets a male singer in his apartment and she asks if he sleeps with him.
Yes, I remember reading
no.
that.
Mm-hmm. So that explains why he says, "Did she tell you I was a homosexual?"
That's in the script.
Right.
Yeah, that's
so
in the
without
script.
having that scene, it seems a little odd.
Can you
and
tell
I always got a laugh from the audience.
Can you tell our listeners, is there a way to get the script? Is the script available online?
Yeah, I was able to buy a copy. So if you Google search it, you can buy it. I don't think it's out there for free, but if somebody wants to put it up, that would be nice.
How much was it?
I think it was like $10 or something.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
She's trying to get back in his good graces, but she's burned so many bridges, and I guess he's given her a number of chances. A lot of times it seems like her life is on repeat, like she's been through these situations before. Oh, it looks like they both decided to do heroin.
Yeah, I think Jasmine seems to be more of a junkie in general.
Right.
That she was more
She's
alcoholic.
She's a garbage head. She'll do whatever.
I think her drug of choice was mainly alcohol, but anything that's around she would take.
And I know it's not a nice term, but they call that garbage head. Someone who will just do whatever is around. They will do it.
Yeah, obviously they're.
This reminds me of Sid and Nancy a little bit.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
And these endless conversations of making plans to kick heroin while you're on heroin.
Right.
And not like you're going to flush what you have left, but once that's gone, then you're going to kick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, from that mentality, you're not going to kick. You can't just do it yourself. You're going to need some major help.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
this is another.
This airport scene, I think, is equally powerful to the singing scene. I mean, she said she hadn't bathed in 5 days when she shot the scene. You can really see it on her face. Probably she hadn't slept either. I don't know, the desperation here is really hard to watch.
Yeah, this poor ticket agent, her name is Colleen O'Hara, but she hasn't really been in much of anything. She was in a Beethoven, that dog movie, but you know, she has quite a scene for her to be in with Jennifer Jason Leigh. I'm sick, see? Yeah, this is like full on JJL action here. If you're a fan of hers,
yeah,
this is one of your
number
favorite scenes.
If you like her mannerisms, this is a gold mine right here.
Yeah. Yeah, she's obviously going through withdrawals.
Yeah. She's edgy not just because of the fact that she has to get on the plane, but because she doesn't have anything in her system at this point.
Right.
Yeah, she needs something.
She's sick. As she said, she's sick.
Mm.
And I think she's going to be going to she needs to go to detox.
Whether she's getting buprenorphine or methadone, she's got to have something in her body to get her through that.
Yeah. Who do you have to fuck to get like what she does with her legs there? Yeah, she definitely did her research on going through withdrawals here.
And also with her sister as technical advisor.
Right.
Her sister had been a heroin addict.
This is Restless Leg Syndrome, which is something that addicts go through. They can't stop shaking their leg.
Is there like a circulation thing to it, like where you're normally kind of numb and you're getting like pinpricks? Or
there was a cut there. It looked like she was about to burn herself with it, and then it cut. I always wondered about that. Sometimes people will burn themselves to distract from the pain that they're going through with the withdrawal. She has a lot of marks on her body too. You can see. Wow, as if things weren't bad enough. I wonder what happened to her shoes. You could only imagine.
She probably doesn't even remember.
Yeah. So,
now you could see a person in this state on the street yelling at people, and your first thought is like, oh my God, get me away from this person. But this movie forces you to go right inside their head.
Yeah.
And you can understand what she's saying, even if you've never, done drugs, or you can just see the pain.
Yeah, this guy with a magazine, he's really trying to avoid it. He's even covering his face with a magazine. And of course, who will come to her rescue but another young man, somehow young men are kind of attracted to the idea of rescuing.
Which
rescuing.
makes you wonder how he's going to get on his plane.
Yeah, but you know, I try not to get too hung up on those things. But yeah, here we are. Georgia's pregnant.
No, in the next couple of scenes, there was a lot more in the script that didn't make it into
the
the
rehab,
film.
correct? In the detox rehab scenes in the detox and rehab.
Yeah, and in the script, Sadie says she was doing boost and return. She said the first guy steals it, the second guy returns it, and they split the money. And she says hooking felt more better, more honest. So it's clear some time has passed between when Axel left and when Sadie went into rehab.
Oh, so she was selling herself?
She was hooking, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And stealing, so like...
How many prostitutes has I know Jennifer Jason Leigh also has gotten some flack by some. It doesn't bother me for playing too many prostitutes or playing women who are demeaned and abused. There are some who have been critical of her for that. Not me, because I happen to be fascinated with characters like that. But I guess she's played maybe 3 prostitutes. I mean, I wouldn't say she's a prostitute. She did some hooking.
Yeah, and that cut out.
But Last Exit to Brooklyn, Miami Blues. Yeah, those are the 2.
And the thing is, the prostitutes she plays are all completely different.
Yeah, it's
like
not,
in '89 when she did Miami Blues and Last Exit, they were both hooker characters, but they're completely the opposite. One was like the hooker with the heart of gold.
Exactly, and the other one is as far away as you can get from the hooker. Oh, this is nice. Speaking of hookers with a heart of gold, in 1995, another film came out that I was completely obsessed with, maybe even more so, and that was Leaving Las Vegas. And Elizabeth Shue actually won the Indie Spirit Award for that. Jennifer Jason Leigh, any other year would have won. She was also nominated, but Elizabeth Shue was incredible in Leaving Las Vegas. But when Elizabeth Shue won, she said to Jennifer Jason Leigh, "This is for you." You know, she gave a tribute to Jennifer Jason Leigh at the show when she won the award for Leaving Las Vegas. And when I saw Leaving Las Vegas, I always thought Jennifer Jason Leigh could have played this role also. So it was I thought that was fitting that Elizabeth Shue would pay tribute to her. I'm sure a lot of actresses were inspired by Jennifer Jason Leigh's, but afraid to take on the roles that she took on. But here now this I don't believe he's actually there.
No.
But I guess
she asks about it.
Right. But it just kind of shows that there's this need, this void that she feels about not having her dad's love.
Right.
For her to actually think that he is there.
Mm-hmm. And their mother isn't mentioned anywhere in the film, which is kind of interesting.
And it's
since her actual mother wrote
exactly. Yeah, I wonder what that's about, or if there's anything about that. I wonder if it's possible their mother died early. That could be part of many addicts, not all, but a lot of times you'll find that they've gone through some kind of trauma when they were younger. It could be that they lost their mother and she was closer to her mother. And then, yeah.
So,
look at her robe. Like, you can see her robe. You can see where cigarette burns. I think that's what that is. Maybe falling asleep with cigarettes.
You see it in the scene too. So in the script, there's another scene in the clinic where Sadie speaks to her counselor, and she says, "I'm just waiting to cheer up enough to kill myself. The Librium is awful. It makes me feel terrible. I almost don't take it, but I still take it. You know, you could give me strychnine and say this'll kill you. Oh, okay, I'll take it, if that's the best you can do."
When the nurse gave the cigarette to Sadie, George's face was like, what? Why are you giving her a cigarette? But, you know, when you're a heroin addict, you know, let them smoke cigarettes. I mean, they have to have something, you know. And when you go to these meetings, it's coffee and cigarettes, coffee and cigarettes.
Even though cigarettes could kill you off worse than some alcohol or drugs sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And that there's the Living Sober book behind her.
So now, of course, these scenes are really based on Jennifer visiting her own sister in rehab. Carrie. So this is all coming from that. So she really knew this inside out. Leigh told the LA Times about her sister finally beating her addiction, which was the 4th time she went into rehab. And she said, "There were long goes, and we were there through all of that. The amazing thing that I remember all of it, every single episode so clearly. When someone you love that much is in rehab, you have this incredible hope. It's also terrifying because the person you love almost more than anyone could die. I remember every single thing, everything she said, everything we talked about, every laugh we shared, every song we sang, and she doesn't remember a thing."
Yeah, that has to be, that's pretty sad.
But fortunately, her sister was able to get sober and became a drug counselor and lived a pretty long life. She died a few years ago.
So she was an older sister.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
A few years older.
Do you know how she died?
I think it was natural.
Really? But she's still kind of young, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's nodding in and out. She's probably on a lot of medication to help her with the withdrawals, especially if she's on methadone. That tends to happen. If you're on methadone, you might nod out. She was.
So I think in this scene they're closer than they've been anywhere else in the film.
Yeah.
Even though they're in totally different worlds. Georgia's about to have a baby. She has a successful career. She's doing what she wants. And Sadie's almost, to the point where she could die if things don't go well. But they both have hope.
Yeah, they're very natural with each other. You can tell that they've really, their real life connection kind of is transmitted in the film. I mean, of course, if you're a great actor, you can do that anyway, but you kind of feel it here. Like the way they're laughing with each other, it's very natural. Oh, yeah, she got the haircut. Look, she's so tiny.
So she went down to, I think, 89 pounds at this point in the film, which is pretty shocking, to do that. And
what was it for best little girl in the world?
I think it was like 86 or something.
So about the same.
Yeah, and she was, a lot older. When you're young, it's a little easier to do that. I think your bodies can take that kind of stress. But so it's interesting that Leland is the guy from the band that visits her, not John. I think
okay.
John's had enough.
Yeah.
But Leland came out to visit her, so that's good.
Yeah. Georgia played very well in New York. I know in New York and in LA. It didn't get a real wide release. The Miramax could have done better with it. It ended up making about $3 million in the U.S., which isn't too bad for this kind of film and back then with inflation. But I think so Miramax could have done a better job.
Yeah, I imagine it probably didn't break even, or if it did, it just barely made it.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't able to find out the exact budget, but I would think it's a few million.
Yeah, I mean, just those concert footage scenes. But they didn't have to travel too much. It's all based in the Seattle area.
Yeah, I don't think they brought out a lot of crew too. They used local talent for a lot.
Barbara Turner, intentionally, of course, wanted it to take place in Seattle around that music scene, that particular music scene.
Yeah, and I always thought it was kind of cool that one of the camera operators was Lulu Gargiulo, who was in the band the Fastbacks, Seattle punk band. So there's a lot of cool connections in this movie. And now, yet another Lou Reed song, Walk on the Wild Side, that they're singing. Now you see that Sadie's settled down a little bit at this point. I think she's probably, if not sober, a little closer to it than she was before.
Yeah, this song is a really beautiful song.
It's called 56 Reasons to Go Downtown by the Ringling Sisters.
Yeah, you can almost feel that the film is kind of winding down, or like coming to a... And this is a nice scene between the two of them.
Yeah. So Barbara Turner told the Milwaukee Journal, Georgia represents everything Sadie wants to be. One of the reasons Georgia keeps getting more private and withdrawn through the movie is that if she offers it, Sadie's going to take it. She even makes a pass at Georgia's husband. She adores him because Georgia has him. Sadie is self-destructive, but she lives every moment as fully as she possibly can, and with a generosity I find quite stunning. So that's kind of ironic that she steals from everyone and uses them, but she's also has an inner generosity. The easiest way to describe it is that it might be nice to be Sadie for a little while, to be so exposed and fearless, but most of us couldn't take it for very long. Still, people like Sadie have to live that way. I assume Sadie will sing the rest of her life, even if it's from a bar stool.
Mm-hmm.
That's how she registers success. By singing, she can pretend she's Georgia. And Turner wrote for Vogue, in families, dialogues have a history. Silences, too, in body language. Sentences have booby traps. You've got to trust each other not to wound, or not to have meant to wound. You expect to be forgiven. You can expect the truth, sort of. It can get in the way. You expect not to be unkind. It doesn't always work out.
Some of the critical reception, it was, again, overall good. USA Today described the film as a painful, though sadly humorous portrait of sisterhood. Yeah, it's probably one of the best films about sisterhood made, I would say. Again, Roger Ebert said that Georgia is a complex, deeply knowledgeable story about a truly lost soul and her downward spiral. Yeah. Rolling Stone said, Georgia is a Leigh's high-wire act, and her fierce, funny, exasperating, and deeply affecting portrayal commands attention. And Real Reviews praised it as a tour de force for Leigh, which I agree with. Tour de force does come to mind. There are times when it's uncomfortable to watch this performance because it's so powerful. Georgia doesn't possess an amazing original narrative, but what distinguishes this picture is the depth of the characters and the amazing power with which the two leads breathe life into them. And then Kenneth Turan of LA Times wrote, Leigh's exceptional performance tears you apart. We've never seen anything like it before. Georgia is not an easy film, but the best in the American way, in the American independent arena. It outperforms everything in sight. It was voted one of 1995's 10 best films of the year from Interview, New York Post, Detroit Free Press, Los Angeles Daily News, and many others. Now here's a very, very crucial scene. This is like the kind of the climax, final scene between the two sisters. And you know, throughout the film, you know, you kind of are seeing things from Sadie's point of view, but I think in this scene, you do kind of get an idea of where Georgia's coming from, and you do get some sympathy for Georgia and why she is the way she is. Because before this scene, it kind of is like, yeah, Georgia, you're so rigid, but it's a very, very generous scene for both characters.
Right. There's a kind of mysterious line in this scene where Georgia says, Mish has got the ticket. She can become weightless, thin air. It's something I'm apt to encourage. What do you think that means?
She doesn't want her to be bogged down by, she doesn't want her to be like her or her sister. I don't think she wants the pressure. Because it seems that this need they both have hasn't necessarily been good for either one of them in some ways. You know, it's strange because Georgia doesn't really seem happy, even though she has what you would think is everything, the family, the house, but she's, and I don't want to say it's just because of her sister. I think she feels that she feels repressed almost.
Yeah, I think it both seems like they did have some trauma when they were young.
Yeah.
And similar to what Leigh did, where she threw herself into her work as a way to deal with it, and her sister went the other way. She threw herself into drugs. It seems like Georgia really threw herself into her singing career as a way to deal with whatever it was that, you know, had caused her so much anguish.
Yeah, and I really do believe that there's probably, you know, when you write a script, you don't need to say everything that happens. You know, you let a good script kind of lets the audience fill some things in, and you can kind of infer that there's probably something to do with the mother.
Yeah,
I mean, you would think that the mother would be mentioned, but there's no mention of a mother. You would think they didn't even have a mother.
Right.
But yet the father is involved. Oh, look at her, the registering of her face. She's really listening. She's hearing that Georgia has a point. Watch what she does with her hands here. Yeah, she's holding on.
And interestingly, when she wraps her hands around the chair, that was actually in the script.
Oh.
It would almost think like that was something she came up with on the set, but it was all there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's so many great moments like that in this film. It's like great set pieces. When you see an action movie, or you know, you think of set pieces, this has incredible dramatic set pieces. There's not much. There's no wasted time in it, really. Oh wow! Look, Sinead O'Connor. This is great. The contrast. Again, this film is all about contrast.
Now she's playing in an even smaller place than she was before.
Yeah,
she's still going. She got a band together. She doesn't even know them, but she can sing.
And then you get the contrast of where her sister's playing, and even the sound design. Mm-hmm. But frankly, I would rather be with Sadie.
Right.
That could just be me. There's plenty of people that would rather be with Georgia. But and again, for me, I prefer her singing, even though, you know, technically it might not be good, but for me,
well, passion.
The passion comes through.
That's what counts.
Yeah.
For me, is passion. It's great to have chops if you're a musician, but if you don't have the passion, then well, there's not much you can do with that.
She's gonna do something at the end of this where she does towards the beginning of the film a gesture with raising her fist. She does that at least 2 times. Once at the beginning, I don't know. I guess it's just part of her mannerisms, but I always found that interesting. You know, Georgia's kind of rigid as she performs. She doesn't use her body, but when you watch Sadie, she uses everything. She gives everything. Maybe she gives too much. Sometimes you need to calm yourself by using heroin to numb the pain. And and we end with the song that began the film, pretty much.
Right. And
we go.
And then the script originally, it was at the ending, it circled back to the children watching the young Sadie and Georgia performing the Beatles song. But I think this works out better.
She said, "No one sings that better than my sister," and then somebody said, "Who?" And she says, "Thank you, comrade." Like this person didn't know who her sister was. And this is a great song to end it with by Tom Waits, "The Piano Has Been Drinking." Yeah, well, that was, you know, this is our first time doing a commentary, and you know, it was a bit difficult for me, especially in the beginning, but I still enjoy doing it. This is a very important film to me.
We missed Mina Badi, her appearance.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
When was she?
I think
She must be like barely in it.
She's driving the car when Sadie got sick at the show. She drives her home.
Oh gosh, that's so.
Yeah, she's only in it for like a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, that's her younger sister. She's 8 years younger. She's a half sister, and she's actually been in a few movies with Jennifer Jason Leigh. She was in Road to Perdition, Miss Parker, Anniversary Party, and in an episode of Jennifer Jason Leigh's new Netflix series Atypical. She plays Holly. Atypical is actually, there's actually 3 seasons of it. So Jennifer Jason Leigh certainly has been working, and she has some films coming up. Mare Winningham is currently in a HBO series. I can't recall the name of it. It's a Stephen King series, but she's working too.
Yeah, she has a lot of credit. I think she has almost 100 now.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Max Pierre-Luc, I don't think he's working too much right now, but.
Yeah, he's another one of those actors that seems really identified with indie movies in the 90s.
Yes.
Starting with Drugstore Cowboy, that's how he made his big impression at first.
Yeah, his first movie was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but let's see, special thanks. Elvis Costello, Van Morrison, Lou Reed, Carrie Morrow, there she is. Let's see, here we have FM radio, IKEA.
So Georgia's band is called The Holders. I don't think they ever mentioned that in the film.
Oh, and there's Truckers Band, Hard Times, Sadie's Band, a lot of bands, Midnight Train to Georgia. Well, the great thing about film is that it never ends. It's for always. It's immortal, and hopefully this film can stay, in the discussion, and we don't want it to get lost in the cracks, because it's truly a tour de force for Jennifer Jason Leigh, and a beautiful movie about relationships. Even if you don't have a sister, you may have a friend. It's just definitely something I think a lot of people can identify with, or at least have empathize with. Yeah. And if you are interested in the craft of acting, you can't do much better than this.
Well, I guess we're getting to the end of it. So.
Yeah, Jennifer Jason Leigh I would put on par with De Niro, Brando. Yeah. She's one of the greats, and
absolutely.
And I hope you got something out of this commentary, and thanks for inviting me to do this, Derek.
Oh, sure. Thanks for
Derek clearly is the expert on this, but I'm a longtime fan of it, and I've been friends with Derek for a long time, so it felt nice to do it together.
All right. Thank you, everyone.